My mom gave my college fund to my stepbrother, so I took her to court and bought the house she's now renting from me. I'm a 19-year-old guy, and my family always made sure I knew I came second. Sometimes I wonder if I ever really stood a chance. My earliest memories aren't of bedtime stories or birthday parties. They're of standing in the doorway watching my mom beam at my stepbrother, Tyler, like he was the sun itself. She married his dad when I was 8 after my own father died, and from that moment on, the world shifted. Suddenly, it was Tyler's favorite meal on the table, Tyler's soccer trophies on the mantle, Tyler's name everyone cheered for at school. If I got a B+, Tyler got an A. If I got sick, Tyler broke his wrist, so of course he got the hospital room and the visitors. I learned early to keep my head down, to make myself small. The message was clear. Tyler was the golden child. I was just the reminder of another life my mom seemed desperate to leave behind. But my dad... My real dad, the one I barely remember, did leave me something. He set up a college fund in my name before he died. I'd seen the paperwork tucked away in a battered envelope, my name in his handwriting, not Tyler's. I clung to that fund like a lifeline. It was the only thing in this house that was truly, completely mine. My mother called it your little nest egg whenever I brought it up, but she'd always add a shrug, "Don't get greedy. Remember, we all have needs in this family." My stepdad, Dennis, laughed and called me a dreamer when I talked about college. "Work with your hands," he'd say, "not your head." So I stopped talking. I worked at the grocery store on weekends and studied in my room with the door shut, while Tyler's friends trashed the living room and my mom pretended not to notice. But in the back of my mind, I kept a tiny hope burning. One day, I'd take that college fund and run, far away from all of them, but things at home never stayed quiet for long. Senior year was supposed to be my escape hatch, the year everything changed. I'd spent all of high school grinding, late-night shifts bagging groceries, pouring every ounce of energy into my grades, clutching at the hope that if I worked hard enough, I could outrun the shadow Tyler cast over me. My acceptance letter came in March, a thin white envelope that shook in my hands as I opened it. I'd gotten into the college I'd dreamed about since middle school, a place where no one knew me as Tyler's stepbrother, just as myself. For the first time in years, I felt light. I let myself imagine a future where I could breathe, maybe even belong. My mom barely looked up from her phone when I told her. "That's nice, honey. Hope you're not expecting a parade," she said. Dennis grunted something about student loans. But I didn't care. I had the fund. I was so sure I'd finally get my shot. Still, there were signs, little cracks in the floor I tried not to see. My mom started getting weird about paperwork, locking her home office when she used to leave it open. Tyler started acting cockier, making jokes about big man's big dreams whenever I mentioned college. And there was the time I caught my mom whispering with Dennis late at night, voices sharp and anxious. When I walked in, they went silent and stared at me like I was an intruder in my own house. I remember sitting alone at the kitchen table, my acceptance letter spread out in front of me, tracing the words over and over. I told myself not to worry. The fund was in my name. My dad had protected it, hadn't he? My mom kept saying, "Your fund is safe, don't worry so much. You'll get your chance." But her eyes never met mine. That summer, the tension in the house thickened, like a storm building behind closed doors. Tyler had his friends over almost every night, throwing parties, wrecking the place, laughing like nothing could ever touch him. Meanwhile, I just worked longer hours and counted down the days until move-in. I didn't realize it yet, but the ground was already crumbling beneath my feet. The night everything unraveled is burned into my memory, even now. I came home from a double shift at the grocery store, bone-tired, smelling like fryer grease, just wanting to collapse. My mom was waiting in the living room, perched on the edge of the couch with her arms crossed tight. Dennis hovered by the window, looking anywhere but at me. Tyler, of course, was nowhere in sight. She didn't waste time. "Sit down," she said, her voice flat and cold. My stomach dropped. I knew that tone. Something was wrong. She started with, "I need you to be mature about this," which is exactly what people say right before they gut you. Then, with barely a pause, she told me the fund was gone. There were unexpected expenses. Family comes first. Her mouth twisted like she was the one in pain. She talked about how everyone had to sacrifice, how Tyler needed help with his business. She said I was young, I'd bounce back, that I shouldn't hold a grudge over money. I couldn't breathe. My mind scrambled for logic. What do you mean it's gone? Dad left that for me. It's mine. My voice sounded small, even to me. Dennis cut in, hard. Don't talk to your mother like that. You're not the only one with needs around here. His face was red, jaw tight. All I could see was the future I'd built in my head, college, a real life, going up in smoke. I kept repeating, "Wait, you can't do this," but my mom just shook her head, eyes glassy. "Tyler needed it more," she said, like that made sense. Like that was the end of the story. I wanted to scream, cry, run, but I just sat there, hands shaking. The only thing I could do was stare at the faded family photo on the wall, my dad's face smiling out like some cruel joke. That night, I lay awake, listening to Tyler's laughter echo down the hall. My world had ended and nobody even noticed. The next morning, the house felt different, emptier somehow, even though everyone was still there. I dragged myself out of bed, half hoping the night before had been some messed up dream, but then I saw it. Tyler's brand new car parked in the driveway, sunlight glinting off the hood like it was mocking me. He was outside showing it off to his friends, his voice carrying through the open window. "Yeah, man, she's a beauty. Dad says I earned it." I stood at the window, fists clenched, stomach twisted with anger and disbelief. That was my future on four wheels. Every hour I'd worked, every plan I'd made, every dream I'd dared to hold, all reduced to a status symbol for the golden child. My mom breezed past me in the kitchen, humming like nothing had changed. "Did you sleep all right?" she asked, pouring coffee, her tone so casual it made my skin crawl. I wanted to yell, to shatter the mug in her hands, but all that came out was a brittle, "Fine." I tried to confront her again later. "How could you give him everything? That was Dad's money. It was supposed to be mine." She didn't even look up from her phone. "We're a family, and sometimes we all have to give a little. Besides, you'll land on your feet. You always do." Dennis just scoffed from the other room, muttering about kids these days and entitlement. Word spread fast. I overheard relatives whispering at a family BBQ. "He should just get over it. Tyler's starting a business. It's for the best." Even my so-called friends started acting weird, like I'd done something wrong. The isolation was suffocating. The only thing worse than being betrayed by your family is having everyone else tell you it's normal. I spent that week walking aimlessly at night, replaying every moment in my head, looking for some clue I'd missed. But all I kept seeing was Tyler's smug grin every time he revved that engine. I started to realize, if I wanted justice, no one was going to help me. Rock bottom didn't come with a dramatic slam of a door or a screaming match. It came with a casual conversation over dinner, like my whole existence was just a scheduling conflict. I was barely picking at my food, trying to ignore Tyler boasting about his weekend plans, when my mom set her fork down and looked straight at me. "You know, you really need to start figuring out where you're going to live this fall," she said. No warning, no softness, just a cold administrative tone. "We can't keep carrying you forever." Dennis jumped in, not even glancing up. "You're a grown man now. Time to make your own way. Your brother's working hard. Maybe you should take a page out of his book." Tyler snorted, not even trying to hide his smirk. "You can always crash with some friends, right? Or get a job at the garage. It's not like you need college for that." I just sat there, staring at the chipped plate in front of me. Every word felt like a punch to the gut. Not only had they stolen my future, but now they were kicking me out like it was nothing. My mom started talking about the spare room becoming her new office once I was gone, already erasing me from her plans. I asked her one last time, "How can you do this to me?" "I'm your son." She just shrugged. "It's for the best. Sometimes tough love is the only way." I spent that night packing up what little I had. Old textbooks, a couple of worn-out shirts, my dad's faded photograph. I didn't even know where I'd go. All I could think about was how fast you can become a stranger in your own home. As I zipped up my bag, I heard Tyler laughing with his friends in the backyard, the sound twisting something deep inside me. I made a silent promise. I would never let them do this to me again. But I had no idea what that would cost. It's strange the things you find when you're packing up your life. I was digging through the bottom drawer of my old desk, half empty now, just dust and memories, when I spotted the battered envelope my dad left behind. I almost tossed it, thinking it was just another bill. But when I pulled it open, my breath caught. Inside was the original paperwork from his will, everything written in his sharp, neat handwriting. My name, the details of the college fund, the exact terms. He'd even underlined it. For my son's education only. Not a cent for anyone else. A wave of hope crashed over me, quick and desperate. I sat down on the edge of my bed, flipping through each page, rereading the words as if I could make them stronger just by staring. There were bank statements, legal forms, a letter from the lawyer. Suddenly, it all clicked. My mom hadn't just betrayed me. She'd broken the law. The anger that had been simmering inside me finally had somewhere to go. My hands shook as I took pictures of everything, making a digital copy just in case. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to power. Maybe it was small and fragile, but it was mine. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing my mom and Dennis laughing in the kitchen, so sure they'd gotten away with it. I searched how to sue for stolen inheritance on my phone, heart pounding, not even sure if I was allowed to think like this. I finally got the courage to email a local attorney, a family friend of my dad's, someone I barely remembered. I told myself it was just to get advice, nothing more. But as I hit send, I realized things were about to change. For the first time, the future felt open again, uncertain, terrifying, but open. I had proof. I had a plan, and I wasn't going to let them win. The moment my mom realized I was fighting back, everything shifted. She cornered me in the hallway, eyes red and wild, voice pitched somewhere between pleading and threatening. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered, glancing over her shoulder to make sure Dennis or Tyler didn't hear. "You're tearing this family apart, don't you see that?" Her words tumbled out in a rush, every syllable dripping with guilt and accusation. "You're going to ruin your brother's future. After all we've done for you," I could barely look at her. Part of me wanted to scream. The other part wanted to disappear. "All you've done for me?" I choked out. "You stole my future. Dad's money was for me. You knew that." She didn't answer, just squeezed her eyes shut, shaking her head as if I was the unreasonable one. For days, she switched tactics, from crocodile tears to cold stares, from whispered threats. "If you go through with this, you'll regret it," to loud sobs behind her closed bedroom door. Dennis started slamming doors, glaring at me whenever we crossed paths. Tyler just acted annoyed, as if my pain was an inconvenience for everyone else. I almost caved. There were moments in the middle of the night when I thought about deleting the lawyer's number, packing up and just leaving everything behind. I hated conflict. I hated seeing my mom broken, even if she'd broken me first. But just when I thought I'd give in, I got a message from my Aunt Jean, my dad's sister, someone I hadn't seen in years. She'd heard what was happening and sent a single line. "Don't let them take what's yours. Your father would be proud." Reading those words, I felt something settle inside me. Not anger, not fear, but a kind of clarity I hadn't felt since all this began. If I didn't stand up for myself now, I never would. Filing the lawsuit felt like detonating a bomb in the middle of my family. The attorney took one look at the paperwork and said, "You have a real case here. Don't let them scare you out of it." Just hearing someone say it out loud made my hands tremble. He filed the claim that week. As soon as the papers were served, all hell broke loose. My mom stormed into my room, her face twisted with rage and panic. "You want to humiliate me? You want to destroy your own family for money?" She spat, her voice shaking. Dennis was even worse. He got right in my face, calling me ungrateful and selfish, warning me that I'd regret this for the rest of my life. Tyler just sulked around the house, barely speaking to anyone, slamming doors and blasting music until midnight. I started getting calls from relatives I barely knew, all of them parroting the same lines. "Can't you let it go? Family is more important than money. You'll never be able to come back from this." I lost friends who didn't want to be caught in the middle. The isolation was complete. For weeks, it felt like the world had turned against me, but I didn't back down. I showed up for every court date, no matter how badly I wanted to hide. Sitting in that cramped courtroom, I watched as my mom tried to twist the story, crying to the judge, making herself out to be the victim, saying she only wanted what was best for both her boys. My hands shook under the table, but I kept my eyes on the judge and told the truth. I described every detail, every lie, every time I'd been pushed aside for Tyler. The first hearing ended with no resolution. The judge called for more documentation, more evidence. My mom glared at me across the courtroom, her face a mask of wounded pride and simmering hate. I walked out of the courthouse that day alone, but for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, a flicker of hope. I didn't expect the secrets to spill out so quickly. In the weeks leading up to the next hearing, my attorney kept digging, asking for every document, every scrap of proof. I spent hours going through old emails, bank records, anything that might help. That's when we found it. My mom hadn't just emptied my college fund. She'd taken money meant for me from my grandparents too, little inheritances I never even knew about. There were weird withdrawals, unexplained transfers, checks cashed in her name instead of mine. The more we looked, the worse it got. When the truth came out in court, it was brutal. My lawyer laid everything out, page after page, as my mom sat frozen at the defendant's table. Even Dennis looked shocked. The judge's expression hardened. "This goes beyond a simple misunderstanding," he said. "This is a pattern." My mom tried to interrupt, but the judge shut her down. Tyler finally snapped, right there in front of everyone. "You said it was just for college," he yelled at my mom, his face red and desperate. "You said it was only for that." The courtroom turned into chaos, raised voices, accusations flying, my mom sobbing and insisting she only wanted to do right by both her boys. But no one was buying it anymore. Relatives who'd avoided me started to realize what was really going on. The family group chat blew up, half the cousins siding with me, half calling me a traitor. For a minute, I felt vindicated, like all the gaslighting, all the isolation, finally meant something. But it also broke something inside me. I wasn't just fighting for my future anymore. I was fighting to prove I mattered at all. The betrayal ran deeper than money, deeper than I'd ever realized. As the judge called a recess and everyone filed out, I caught a glimpse of my mom, shoulders slumped, face gray, eyes hollow. It hit me. There was no going back from this. I was about to win. But it wasn't going to feel like victory. The final hearing felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, one push away from everything collapsing, but also maybe finally a way out. I sat behind my lawyer, palms sweating, as the judge read the verdict. "In favor of the plaintiff," he announced, voice echoing through the silent room. My mom was ordered to pay back every cent she'd stolen, my fund, the hidden inheritances, all of it. If she couldn't, the house would be sold to cover the debt. I thought victory would feel like triumph. Instead, it just felt heavy. My mom wouldn't look at me. Dennis glared, jaw clenched, and Tyler stormed out before the ruling was even finished. My family was gone, maybe for good. But beneath the ache, there was a strange sense of peace, too. I'd stood up for myself. I'd made them listen, even if they hated me for it. The fallout was immediate. My mom packed up her things, refusing to speak to me. She called me selfish, cold, told anyone who'd listen that I'd ruined her life. Friends I thought I'd keep forever disappeared. But the judge's words kept ringing in my ears. "You're entitled to your future." A few weeks later, the house went up for auction. I used the restitution money and a small loan from Aunt Jean to buy it outright. I didn't tell anyone, not even my attorney, until the sale was final. The moment I signed the papers, it felt surreal. The house I'd been exiled from was mine now. But the sense of justice didn't last long. My mom and Dennis, having nowhere else to go, asked, through a third party, if they could rent the place from me, just until they got back on their feet. I stared at the email for a long time, heart pounding, unsure whether to laugh or cry. This wasn't the ending I'd pictured, but it was the ending I'd earned. The day the lease was signed, I stood alone in the empty hallway, keys heavy in my hand. My childhood home looked smaller now, stripped bare of all the noise and memories. I'd told myself I was doing this for closure, for control. But as I watched my mom and Dennis haul in battered boxes, avoiding my eyes, saying nothing but what was absolutely necessary, I realized how surreal it all was. Tyler didn't even show up. Apparently, he was too busy living somewhere else, running the business my future had paid for. The power dynamic had flipped overnight. My mom, who once told me I was a burden, now handed me rent checks with a trembling hand each month. She kept the place spotless, barely said a word. Dennis mumbled requests for repairs, never meeting my gaze. I kept things businesslike, polite but distant. I'd imagined this would feel like sweet revenge, but mostly, it just felt empty. Sometimes late at night, I'd hear her crying in the kitchen, thinking I was asleep. Once I caught her staring at my dad's photo on the wall, tears streaking her face. I wondered if she finally realized what she'd thrown away, or if she just missed the comfort of the past. I didn't know, and I didn't ask. For the first time in my life, I had boundaries. I kept them at arm's length, refusing to get drawn back into old patterns. I started focusing on my own future again, enrolling in classes online, rebuilding what I'd lost, making plans without anyone else's approval. I felt stronger, sharper, like I'd been forged in fire, but I also felt the ache of what could never be healed. Still, every time the rent arrived on time, a small, stubborn satisfaction bloomed in my chest. This was my house now, my rules, my life. But I knew the final chapter wasn't finished yet. It's strange how revenge never looks the way you imagined when you're living through it. I thought getting justice would fill the empty spaces, heal the bruises no one could see. Instead, it just made everything quieter. I kept my distance from my mom and Dennis, saw them only for the most necessary things: a lease renewal, a clogged drain, the occasional tense conversation in the entryway. The house didn't feel haunted anymore, but it didn't feel like home either. Instead, I started building something for myself. Small, stubborn steps toward a future that no one else could take away. I signed up for classes at the community college, using what was left of the restitution. I got a part-time job with a local contractor, learned how to fix things with my own hands. Sometimes when I'd pass through the old living room, I'd remember sitting there as a kid feeling invisible, desperate for someone to notice me. Now, I didn't need anyone's permission to matter. My mom and I barely spoke, and when we did, the words were brittle, cautious. She once tried to apologize, but the wound was too deep for a tidy ending. I told her I hoped she'd find her own way forward, but I couldn't carry her guilt for her. Tyler never reached out. In a way, I was grateful. I didn't need more apologies or excuses. I just needed distance. The strangest thing? As the months passed, the anger faded. In its place was something quieter, peace maybe, or at least acceptance. I didn't get the family I wanted, but I got something else: freedom, and the knowledge that I fought for myself when it mattered most. Now, every time I deposit their rent check, I remember the kid I used to be, the one nobody believed in, and I make a silent promise to never let anyone make me feel small again. Because in the end, I took back my future, and I'm not giving it up for anyone.